It's the Opperman Report. Join digital forensic investigator and PI Ed Opperman for an in-depth discussion of conspiracy theories, strategy of New World Order resistance, high-profile court cases in the news, and interviews with expert guests and authors on these topics and more. It's the Opperman Report. And now, here is investigator Ed Opperman.
Okay, welcome to the Opperman Report. I am your host, Private Investigator Ed Opperman, and this show is brought to you by emailrevealer.com. You can go to emailrevealer.com and get an autographed copy of my book, How to Become a Successful Private Investigator, but also to all different kinds of services on there. Like if you think your spouse is cheating on you, your boyfriend or your girlfriend might be stepping out on you, you give us their email address, and we trace it back to online dating websites, and we catch them cheating online. Locates, asset searches, background reports, adoption investigations, all kind of fun stuff there at emailrevealer.com. Okay. I really want to thank our guest today. We have Simon Wells, and he's the author of the book Charles Manson, Coming Down Fast. He's over there in the UK, and he's written a whole bunch of books about the Beatles, about the Stones, all kinds of fascinating topics that our audience is totally into. But it was really kind of back and forth to schedule this for me and make time for me today. So I really want to thank you, Simon, for really going out of your way and making time for me today. I really do appreciate it because I was kind of a pest. Kind of pestering you a little bit there yesterday. So thank you so much.
It's my pleasure.
Thank you, Simon. Can you tell us about yourself? Who is Simon Wells?
Who is he, indeed? Simon Wells was not a part of the 1960s. I think that's my main drive, is that I was I sort of came to life in the 70s, and I have since nursed this upset as not being part of the 60s. So, like for many of us who grew up in the 70s and 80s, we look back on the 60s and think, oh, I wish I'd been part of that. So, the next best thing is to become a fan of the decade. And then obviously, I translated that into writing. So, I'm a full-time writer, and I'm also a musician as well, but my income derives from writing, which I thoroughly enjoy, and I'm lucky enough to be able to write about subjects which fascinate me, which is a rare treat.
Yeah, it really is, and you get to meet the most interesting people too, and travel places and stuff. It is a treat. Yeah. I'm 55 myself, so I know what you're talking about. Yeah, right. How old are you?
Same.
yeah. Okay. Yeah, I know. And I grew up to fascinated by that time, and then I actually went. In the late 70s, I joined up with the Yippies in New York City on Lower East Side, who were kind of like leftover, kind of the last... So
did you must have met David Peel then, yeah?
Oh, met David Peel many times. Okay, David Peel, sure.
Cool.
Oh, that's right, he just passed. That's right, he just passed.
Yeah, that's right, just recently, yeah.
Yeah, I was hoping to get an interview with him before,
Bummer.
Yeah, I know, but he never got back to me, though. But yeah, a bit of my childhood show, we used to run into David Peel all the time. So... this book here, Charles Manson, Coming Down Fast. Now, it's kind of sort of like the negative side of the 60s. How'd you land in that area?
It's anyone who's a student of the 60s comes across Charles Manson. I mean, he is a popularly, if I can say that right, he's sort of been cast as the bogeyman, the man who drew the curtain over the 60s. And I'm a big Beatles fan, so, again, you bump into Manson on the Beatle track. He's tied up with that as well. What interests me a lot, as someone who sort of is fascinated by the truth and is very skeptical of myth-making, of course, which in the 60s is largely a myth, this was the world's most famous serial killer and mass murderer who really never murdered anyone. And that, to me, stuck out. And the fact that people bought that, you only have to go on to, I don't know, was it CN or whatever the crime channel is, to find Manson lumped in with all the other serial killers. And so that was an interesting point for me. And equally, as someone who, probably like yourself, I actually grew up in a left field community and sort of hung out with a lot of travelers and hippies and whatnot. I've met quite a lot of Charles Manson characters in my time. Not necessarily involved with murder, but certainly hugely involved with spouting BS, influencing young people, mediocre buskers, handing out drugs, living in communes, teepees, benders, buses, the whole kit and caboodle. So, to me, the Manson story, Saul's murder, wasn't that unusual. It was just, and Manson, again, was not someone that I'd come across a lot of people like him in the alternative community. So, I had an opportunity, a few years ago now, but I had an opportunity to really get to grips with it. And so I decided, rather than the raft of books, which just all concentrate on Manson the maniac, Manson the murderer, Manson the lunatic, I thought I'd actually take the complete opposite and actually try and demystify, deconstruct the mythology, and just present Manson as what I saw him as a, sort of mediocre busker, had influence over young people. I mean, we've all, been in pubs and bars at a certain age, and there's always this guy who's either come out of prison or he's got he's a drug dealer, and he sort of speaks your language when you're a teenager. To me, that was Manson, and I don't see the story that fantastic at all. Obviously, the murders, which he's obviously associated with, or largely associated with, that's a different thing. But that to me also was unusual because, as we know, in LA, and like other sort of crime hotbeds around the world, people die every single day from gang murders, and I had to check the murder figures from LA from the 60s. It's nothing sort of shocking. So why did this one story stick out? So then we get into celebrity, and Sharon Tate. I mean, people might think I'm being insensitive, but again, my whole brief was to literally just hone this down, strip away all this guffaw and this hysteria. Sharon Tate if she had not been involved in these murders, would we be talking about this now? I think not, So it really is a tale of celebrity and hysteria, and I wanted just to strip that back.
That's fascinating, because when you were talking, I remembered as a little kid, when the story first hit the newspapers, back then we had newspapers, right? And first hit on the news, I remember, because in our neighborhood, we had those long-haired kids, and they were smoking pot. We knew they were up to something. We knew, the Beatles. We knew something was going on, because I was a young kid. And I remember when these murders came out, my mother was saying, well, what are those kids up to? And she said, they take these drugs and they get a picture in their mind of someone they have to kill, and then they have to go kill that person. And rational people, believe that kind of thing, maybe that was
Manson really was the guy who killed the hippie dream, because I spoke to many people in the counterculture after the Manson murders broke, and they said if you had long hair and a beard, and you were viewed with huge suspicion.
Yeah.
So he really finished it off, the whole hippie dream. But again, he didn't finish it off. It was the media which, elevated him to this near messiah status, which, of course, when you send that message out on the wires,